and what is yours? What is both of your ideal form of life? So if I could sort of segue it, I'm going to give 3 acronyms to what the ideal form of life is. And then from that, we'll have our final sort of discussion on it. So ideal form of life. Ideal for me means that it's up to me. I'm accountable. To do what? D, I need to dream. I need to decide. I need to actually document it and make it real. And lastly, I need to do it. What does the E stand for? Well, I need to eliminate everything that doesn't do D. And then how am I going to do that? I need to automate my process because otherwise it's messy. And how do I automate it? Create habits and rituals that will get me D, the results that I'm looking for, that I dreamed about. And then lastly, I just need to live it and learn by doing it. So it's really about the D, just dreaming, deciding, documenting, and doing, taking action and failing forward, as you and I talked about, Tony, before. So form, we've talked about form. What are the chunks of your life? I've broken it into 4. It helps me stay focused, right? And that is what family and friends, occupation, work and wealth, recreation, health and wellness, and M is motivation. What are the chunks of your life that are important to you? And then lastly, what is life? Well, if I've defined it in my ideal framework, in the 4 areas or the areas of my life, it's really just living intentionally focused on executing. I've got a whole bunch of other acronyms. I get teased by my friends on the acronym king, but the point is, you know, how do I do it? How do I just live intentionally focused on executing? And that's really the question. What is your guys' ideal form of life? And how do we do that? How do we just stay focused, be clear, and keep it simple?
I have recently sort of tried to craft my ideal form of life. You know, so for me, it is the path that I'm on. It involves a work environment where it is flexible around family. I think is really kind of the main anchor in everything. You know, I could have gone a lot of ways in a recent career shift, but for me, everything anchored around family, right? Being able to have the flexibility to drive kids to school or cover for a dentist appointment or something like that. Like whatever I did in business had to work around that. And so I've got that in place. And the other aspects of it is leading and building and kind of having the autonomy to sort of head down on my own path and being in control of my own fate, I guess is maybe more so what it is. I'm putting myself in a place to do that. And then combined with some physical wellness. You know, I have a very young kid. So I guess my 1.5-year-old was born when I was 36. So, you know, I've always done the math in my head that I'm like, okay, when this kid's 20 and in his prime, how old am I going to be? And how fit do I need to be at that age to be able to still take this kid out? So, you know, that's kind of my, that's a big part of what I drive for. So it's finding time around the family is an ideal form of life, doing a job where I have the control of my own fate in a business that I love or an industry that I love, and being able to have the time on a day-to-day basis to be able to stay fit and stay healthy and be able to keep up with those kids as they get older. That's my ideal form of life.
That's
Tony,
awesome.
That is awesome. Tony, just a question on that. You started that piece out by saying, I just recently started to control or craft my ideal form of life. Can you just speak on that a bit? Is like, what was the turning point for you? What was the realization? Like, why?
So I was, I worked in Silicon Valley, corporate, America, California, Fortune 100 company for the last like 5 years. And I was given an option, come move down to Irvine, California and take this office on the 4th floor of our global headquarters and be a vice president for this multi-billion-dollar division and do all of these things. But it came with the fact that I would have to move to California, and having a son with open heart, with a congenital heart defect that required open heart surgery. The healthcare and everything down there is fine. That is not the issue. It is the fact that there's a consistency of care kind of through it. And my son has had his heart operated on twice by the same man. So literally the surgeon at BC Children's Hospital here has seen my son's heart and fixed it twice. And he has at least one more surgery going forward. And it's like a mechanic on a car, right? The mechanic knows everything that's happened in his own car. But you bring a new car in and some stuff is, being worked together and whatever else, that mechanic may not have the background and may not make the same decisions as the original mechanic that owns it, right? And so it came down to that didn't matter what the career was, didn't matter what anything else was. It was the fact that I couldn't put that on my son and force him to change that care. And I would never be able to live with myself if something happened later on in life. And so that forced me to walk away from that career. And so I was left with do I go to work for somebody else, or do I go ahead and do I build my own business? And I didn't like the idea of going to work for somebody else anymore. So I was basically left with going, okay, if you're going to build your own business, what the hell are you going to do? And so I made it in the CrossFit industry, in the health and fitness industry. I made it around stuff that I know, building software and technology. I continue to do advisory type work. I built it so that I could work from anywhere in the world. My team is 100% remote. So I was given the options, and luckily I worked my butt off for a bunch of years to be able to put myself in a place to do that. And so I crafted what I want.
Yeah. Well, great story, Tony. Thank you. And, I think this is really encouraging. It's encouraging for me, even at my age, but it's also, I think, very encouraging for other people to hear that it can be done. It's quite interesting, though, you were forced to do it. It's almost like you were forced to a point where you had to quit, and then you had the options. But the uncommon truth is anybody can do that at any time.
True.
They literally don't have to wait till they're forced to do it. But because we're humans, we don't have to be slaves to that job that we don't like. We don't have to be slaves to that company that isn't treating us well, or we're not getting the fulfillment. It's not meeting our needs. But it's so hard for people to look at that and make the changes. Just a very small thing in my life is I remember my wife was struggling because she wasn't spending enough time with her young child when they were as an infant, because she had an intense job, right? But one day she decided, I'm going to go ask for a 4-day week. Went in and asked for a 4-day week, and the guy said, sure, no problem. And it's like, whoa, it's like, that was a massive change in my life, the child's life, her life, right? But that it was so hard for her to do that. It was beyond the scope of what she thought was possible. And I think that probably goes back to the fears. We talked about this in episodes past, and we'll talk about it again, Heath. The fear that we have, that we don't have the ability to change. We won't be able to do it. People will say no. What will people think, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah. Good story.
It's very dynamic, what we're talking about here, and trying to live an ideal form of life. And it changes at different times, different seasons. Everything happens for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. The wise man is able to figure out which one it is. So for me, it was quite interesting. Bob, if I'll jump in and then you could share. But as a young man, I was a policeman and worked with VPD, and the lifestyle, I loved it, and a bit of an adrenaline junkie, and it really was meeting my need to empower and try to help people, right? Then I came to the truth and the realization that you really can't help people that don't want to be helped. And the journey and the stress and different things of that job began to stick. Ultimately, it cost me my health, and I ended up becoming a type 1 diabetic, and Bob, you know that story, and Tony, but it drastically changed my life because I was always healthy. I was always fit and an elite athlete, and to lose that terrified me. And I went back and had a great career, and I was treated so well afterwards by the department. But I came to a realization that I wasn't going to be able to be healthy. And that changed my life drastically to the place where my relationships were being affected by the job. My physical health was being affected. My mental outlook on life was being affected. So I chose to jump, and Bob was a big part of that. And in my journey as a friend and the group of men that were holding me accountable at that time. And so I jumped into the self-employment world and went into business. But ultimately it was so I could have a healthy life in all areas of my form, my relationships, my finances, my health, and ultimately the ability to be free, to be able to choose. And that is how I ended up being in that place where I had to change. And since then, 30 years has transpired, and I'm once again beginning a new season, a new chapter of life with the Uncommon Truth, with new colleagues, new friends. And I'm so excited about the transition. And I think that is a segue for us really, Bob, maybe you can touch on that, is from your ideal form of life, you've always been about transformation and transition. And that's really what us in the Uncommon Truth is about. What our whole topic of, and we'll be talking about hopefully for years, about how do we transition and grow? How do we become something better? That's it. So what's your ideal form of life, Bob, and how are you focused on that?
Well, when I was a young man, I graduated from university, and one of my first jobs that I got was I was becoming a camp director for youth. And so I got an opportunity to work very closely with youth in a camp setting. That's a very inspirational setting. So we're using recreational activities actually to build character, build virtues in children, right, to help them develop and grow in a way. So I got a great flavor for what it was like to have an impact on another human being simply by being there or developing a program. So it was the YMYWCA. The YMYWCA had a concept, mind, body, and spirit. And that was really the first time that I was introduced to the concept of spirit. It's like, spirit? What's spirit? So I was intrigued with this spirit thing. And because I was a reader, I started to actually investigate the whole spirit thing. Now I would add another quadrant to that. I love mind, body, and spirit because it's very simple. Your mind, your body, and this other side that people don't really understand very well. But it speaks powerfully to something that could be important. So I would add relationships to that as well, right? I'd say, so if I look at my mission, it's like mind, body, spirit, and relationships. But that's the way I look at life. But that spiritual component became very important. And I started to look at the reality of spirit. Is there such thing as faith? Is there such thing as God? Is there such thing as a powerful force that can't be explained in life? And I actually took a long time to do that. And I was obsessed. I was obsessed with this answer because a lot of people said there was, but there was a lot of people at the time saying, no, that's just false. That's false, man. And so at the end of the day, by age 28, I had committed to spirit. I committed to faith. And I totally am to this day a faithful spiritual person. So I would say that each and every day, my ideal form of life is understanding that there's something more powerful than me. And that gives me strength. Honestly, that took away all my fear. Like if I committed so that I don't have any fear about anything that I do. That was a powerful step to remove fear. So every day I do something that's spiritual or faithful. I've got a pragmatic, practical set of rituals that I do that keeps me strong. So then I also, my ideal form of life is I work on myself, my mind, my body, and my intentionality. So I get up each and every day and I wonder, in my roles in my life, how can I be better? How can I be a master at being an uncle, How can I be a master at being a friend? How can I be a master at being a leadership development expert? So I work on those things too. And primary to that is my relationship with my wife. So I chose her for life. She's committed to life with me, the crazy woman that she is. And so I want to be strong with her. And then we try to be a couple. So I try to make us a couple. So we're strong together. So I try to provide leadership there, accept the leadership that she gives me as well. And we try to be strong for our kids. So you can see the kind of the linear progression here. Faith, myself, strong for my wife, strong as a couple. And now I got kids too, right? And now I got that family. So I'm a strong family. And if I can be a strong family, then I can be a strong community member as well. Our family can have an impact in the community. And so that's how I look at life. I look at life in that structure each and every day. I get up and try to do that each and every day. A little bit here, a little bit there. Take a step here. And I guess the last thing I would say, Heath and Tony, is I try to be original and creative. I try to do different things. So one of the things I do for to keep my relationship strong with my wife is I cook for our family. It's our family too. She works long hours. It's a passion for me to cook, so I try to be creative in the cooking. So I become an expert at Persian cooking, Thai cooking, Japanese cooking, Canadian cooking, of course, right? Mexican cooking over my life. That's what's that called? That's called obsession, man. It's because I took on cooking. It's the pursuit of mastery of cooking. So, yeah, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that happens around our dinner table, right? Our dinner table, there's unique food probably going out. There's unique food a couple of nights ago, never prepared stuff, and it creates conversation. When you're breaking bread with people, relationships are built. If you have some really interesting questions to ask during that meal, right? Perspectives are brought on. We had a philosophical forum the other night where I'd written down philosophical questions that we're sitting around eating, and I'm asking questions like we're asking right now. Like we're asking each other right now, like, what is the meaning of life? Or there were actual quotes from people, right? And I said, what do you think about that quote? And all of a sudden there's discussion going around this dinner table. So exciting for me and everybody else, it seemed. So yeah, I don't know, Heath, I hope that's clear enough.
No, I think this conversation has been extremely good today. You know, I'm really welcoming as we're continuing to tackle these hard questions about life that and just really getting into truthful answers about where we each are, where we're at, and how we got where we've gotten, and how are we going to help others get there. So I think it's a good segue into what we'll be talking about in the next sessions that we're going to be going and bringing out here at the Uncommon Truth, and that's, you know, not procrastinating. How do we predict our future? How do we create that map, that ideal form of life, and several others. But I really want to thank you guys and just try to do a really brief summary from each of us on the uncommon truth about these three questions. You know, how do we improve our quality of life? Well, I think the consensus that I got was we got to really identify the outcomes and the goals that we want, and be real about what our human needs are. What's driving our actions, our behaviors, our feelings, and how are we going to just live with passion? And that was actually the answer I think we came up with. Is obsession or passion a key element in becoming our best? And I think we all agreed that passion and obsession, and even I use the word addiction in a positive way, that we have got to want something so badly that we're willing to put up with the pain, which is the partner to the growth. You know, when we're willing to persevere and work through the pain, we end up with the reward of growth, progression, which ultimately leads to fulfilling and a quality of life that we're all desiring. And I think you really summarized it well. And you and I are so aligned on that area. And Tony, you know, we've talked a little bit about spiritual issues together, but wherever each of us comes from, we need to take the time to define our ideal form of life. It can be done in 20 minutes, but realistically, it takes a couple of hours and probably a couple of sessions, because you're going to go back and ask the questions of, what do I really believe in the spiritual world? What do I really believe about my soul, which is who I really am? My mind, you know, my will, my emotions, all of that gets bundled up in there. And then lastly, what do I want for my body, my life, my physical health, so that, you know, Tony, as you said, I'm going to be around to be that exuberant father when my children are adults, or me trying to be the most jacked grandpa, so that I can run around with my grandkids at early morning hockey practices or whatever it is that they choose to do, but be that. But I think, Bob, you really eloquently brought it, that the three components of being a human being, and human, we actually look up the meaning of it, is humus and man. Humus means dirt. Man is spirit. It's a spirit in a dirt body. So we all, as human beings, and being is living, is us trying to bring an integrated approach to life, which involves our spirit, which involves our soul, our mind, and our body. So as we move forward and we continue to ask these tough questions and seek to find the uncommon truth about it, I think the real thing that I've taken from this is we're going to need to dig into more discussing about that ideal form of life, and how do we live it, and how do we really live those primary questions that we all have in our life. So let's plan our life and live our plan. So let's just keep moving forward and continue to ask these hard questions about life, and to keep seeking those answers and finding the uncommon truth together. Thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to talking again and seeing all of you again who are watching. Thanks again. Cheers and have a great day.